Day evening, and that means it's time for us to sit down and put together yet another episode of the Auburn Experience podcast, where we talk about sports, family, and culture within the Auburn family. Of course, I'm back with you and my co-host, Austin Scott. Let's get into all those different things right now. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, we are here back in the saddle again. I am still on the road, living in a crazy time of life, but a good time of life. We're making it happen on the road. Obviously, I'm back here with you, your host, Kyle. Austin with me. We'll start our recording here soon. But for now, Austin, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a good weekend. I'm continuing the orange out, I guess.
I see.
And so, yeah, it's been good. It was a great weekend in Auburn. Could have been excellent, but a great weekend nonetheless.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising. I don't think you and I anticipated talking about Auburn being 3 minutes away from upsetting the number one team.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to spend a major section of the podcast discussing that the weekend. And yeah, it's one of those things that it's been interesting over the last 2 weeks where you've had sheer despair, people trying to rationalize. I mean, we had a therapy session last podcast, did we not?
Oh, we definitely did. We much needed for many. And we definitely did. And I think if you and I were honest with ourselves, we were expecting another one this weekend. But lots of positives to take away. We'll definitely get into all of it.
I have been pleasantly surprised, whether it's been here on our channel or just in general, the overall commentary and understanding seems to be like, okay, we're not great, but maybe we're not as bad as I acted like after Texas A&M. And to be frank, as positive as I try to be, and maybe, we tried to smooth things over last week, we're both understanding of the situation. This team has got a long way to go, but obviously it's very interesting. We're going to dive into a bunch of that stuff today. Would love to know who's here hanging out with us. Post where you're watching from, your city, state. If you're international, you can do that too with a War Eagle. Always helpful to get the show started off on a good note. We'd like to say hello to any of you if you've got any comments or questions. We'd love to hit any of those. We got Stan and Corey checking in, David on Facebook, Kevin Kelly, Miss Linda, who I got to see at Tiger Walk yesterday. Always a pleasure. Brian checking in from the Great White North. And then John also checking in today as well. Good to see all of you here so far. Let's see. Corey says that the offense is getting there. Just going to take a lot more work. We've been better suited if Thorne would have got here during spring ball. I think that's a fair take. Any problems with that?
No, I got no problems with that. I think Auburn and Coach Freeze, because we all heard about the names that were out there, would have loved to have a quarterback for spring ball. Didn't fall that way. And they, for whatever reason, whatever their reasons are, which are good enough for me, they were not a good enough prospect to take or get on campus for spring ball. And so Peyton Thorne ended up coming in summer. I mean, that's going to be the same way with if you've got a stud freshman coming in from high school too. We all would love for them to early enroll in January so they can get to know the players and be around for spring ball. Sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. But I think Corey's exactly right. It's going to take some work and some things to gel together. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but we've all heard about the kind of up in the air. It's the annual question: should the head coach be more involved in play calling? And it sounds like that maybe some more of those things happen this week. So it's going to take some time, but I think, like you said, Kyle, I think the general consensus is we're all pretty okay.
Yeah, it's surprising, honestly, the amount of acceptance that has not acceptance like we're accepting mediocrity, but we're now accepting of the situation, because I think what people just wanted to see was that it wasn't as bad as Texas A&M looked.
Right.
And it's clear after the game against Georgia, it's not miles better, but it's definitely not as bad as most people thought it would be. Corey also asked, did we have a good showing for the recruiting front? I can speak from my perspective. We're trying to save most of this for that segment, but I can tell you that if atmosphere is the factor that makes the difference for a recruit that was there, it sold itself. And think about this too. If it was a night game, Austin, wow, it would have been even bigger.
Oh, it would have been better because we all wouldn't have been suffering from heat stroke. But it was a good weekend for atmosphere. The recruiting section looked full. I don't know a lot of the names right now. I don't know, but I know there were plenty of stars abound for football, basketball, all the things. So if I don't see how that game doesn't help recruiting, that's for sure.
And just think about all the names that showed up celebrity wise. Think about some of the names that are currently committed to Auburn, if you know those names, and then some that you thought might have committed to Auburn but went elsewhere, still showed up for this particular game and made impressions. So obviously that was a great outcome of everything. I agree. JHS was rocking. So with that being said, we're about 6 minutes into the stream. Here's the drill. Most of you know it. We will be now moving into our live record where we won't be addressing very many comments or questions, but you guys feel free to chat along with each other. At the end of about 30-minute segment, 3 10-minute-ish segments, I will say bye to Austin. I will stay with you for just a few minutes. I'm actually going to get out a little bit early too, but I'll take a few more questions and then we will call it a night. But episode 52, if you're ready, Austin, let's get this thing going.
I'm ready.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole Auburn experience. We're obviously talking about sports a lot here. We're obviously going to talk about the loveliest little village on the plains, but it's even more than that. It's about a War Eagle moment that you have in an airport in Anchorage, Alaska. It's about connections that are made overseas and sometimes just a little mom and pop shop down the street from Auburn as well. Because it is about all those things. It is about sports, culture, and family. We've got to have a member of the Auburn family here to join me on this show. And he is always here alongside me, your host, Kyle, my co-host, Austin Scott, back in the saddle with me for episode 52. Austin, welcome back.
Thank you, Kyle. War Eagle to you. I love our opening. I think it's the best possible opening for our show because it truly, in a couple sentences, describes the Auburn experience. And weekends like this, weekends like the one we're finishing up here on this Sunday night, describe the Auburn experience perfectly. And so I'm looking forward to getting into it with you.
Obviously, we got a bunch to talk about with this. Much different tone, much different rhetoric, much different feelings after last episode where we had a little bit of therapy. We had a little bit of trying to process as a collective what we just witnessed from the football team. And as we know on the show, it's not just about the football team, but we're not going to ignore the facts that football is the thing that drives this machine. And because of that, all the other experiences are they are often enhanced, but sometimes maybe they take our attention away from those things. So we can't ignore all of that. So I would love for us to start before we get into some of our bigger topics with the usual Auburn potpourri, things that are a little bit minor topics that don't take as long to discuss. I'm going to start us off here because I'm going to be selfish. It's my sport, basketball. Folks, I know we're in football season. You can take a break during the bye week, but we are back at practice for men's and women's basketball, and it's a beautiful thing. They're starting to kick into the marketing overdrive with doing little fun things on social media. Listen, I love football, but for me as a former athlete, I say former because if you see me play now, you're probably questioning that it was ever possible. Basketball season is always the thing that I look forward to, and the build up to the finality of it with March Madness is just the best time of the year. But football is always going to be my favorite sport to watch, but basketball is just so much fun. So thoughts on the season that is building towards it, about 30 plus days away, a high 30 days away as the time of this recording. Thoughts on basketball getting somewhat started?
I mean, it's super exciting. That's always a fun time when it gets started because we're hitting the tail end of the regular season in football. So it's always fun to have more to talk about, but also be excited about more, especially, since Bruce Pearl's got here. Auburn basketball has been an incredibly exciting thing on campus. The men's and then Johnny Harris, we know it. We've talked about many times, has shown the upward trajectory of the Auburn women's program. So it's fun. I think both teams have a bunch of likable players this year, a bunch of personalities I think we're going to like on and off the court. And they're just athletic. They're athletic as all get out. And so it's going to be a lot of fun for this year to see how they gel. That's the biggest part. Bruce Pearl has talked about that many times, Johnny Harris as well. these teams have to gel, and sometimes that takes a little longer than you anticipate. And they can be as talented as the world can see, but if they don't gel together and play as a team, it can be difficult. So I think we're going to see a lot of that pretty early this season, and it's going to be an exciting year.
Well, it's going to be an exciting year in terms of schedule for Auburn men's basketball with a lot of high-profile stuff. We'll probably talk maybe a little bit more about that next week when we are fully in the bye week phase and basketball's at least football's quieted down just a little bit. But I would also tell folks, if you're not paying attention to women's basketball this season, you need to get on board, because this is a program in the first 2 seasons that is trending upward right now. And do I know what's going to happen this year? No, but I know I like what I see thus far. So jump on board.
Kyle, have they announced a tip-off at Toomers yet this year?
I was going to bring it up if you hadn't said it.
Yeah.
They have not. They didn't do it last year.
That's right.
I get the feeling that has never gone exactly the way they would like it to, not in attendance and hype for it, but weather, what they're able to accomplish in terms of the resources it takes to pull off. This is just me speculating. I have no source that's telling me this, because it was such a well-received thing. I would have to think maybe it's a logistical nightmare. What I did like when the weather created an issue one year was we did the event, couldn't really do the dunk contest because it wasn't safe because of condensation. The next weekend, I think is what it was, they did an open practice with an actual game that you could come and watch, and they actually did the dunk contest then. So I don't know. I mean, I take it that you would like for them to do it again if they could.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been something really cool and something unique to Auburn to be able to do it on Toomer's Corner. If it's the logistics, and like you said, you and I are just talking back and forth speculating. If it's the logistics, then I would love for us to just, a lot of schools do something just in the arena, whether it's Kentucky doing a Midnight Madness or something along those lines. I would love for us to do something in the arena. I think it'd be a lot of fun and cool if the logistics are the thing holding it back. But I hadn't heard anything about it. But you're right, they did not do it last year. I'd forgotten that.
There are a couple of good home football weekends where it feel like it would make sense to do something like that with good crowds in town. Haven't heard anything. We'll see if it comes back. But like you, I love the event, and I hope that they do something about it in the future. I have one more thing I want to bring up, but if you had something that you want to discuss in Potpourri, I'll let you have the floor.
No, you're good. Small thing you and I talked about. If you followed our friend Clint Richardson on X, then they're I hate it so much.
It sounds, what it sounds
stupid.
Like. Well,
it sounds
beyond
stupid, but it also sounds inappropriate. But
this is a family
regardless,
show.
That's right. I got to go in the new Auburn team shop that's located on College Street under some new apartments or condos, whatever you want to call them. Really cool. Really, I think it's going to do really well, especially on game day. They were busy all day. And so I think that's a nice addition to downtown. But I'm way more excited to hear your last piece of Auburn Potpourri, because I can't believe this is the first time I'm hearing this.
I will atone for something. But let me say about the team shop too, though. I like it a lot. It's nice to have something. When I say high end, there's nothing taken away from J&M, because Lord knows we all are going to just fawn over J&M, and rightfully so, every time we get or whatever your shop of choice downtown is and stuff like that. But there's never been that like official modern one, So that's kind of a nice addition. One thing that I thought though about that. Do you get the feeling that was a situation where a tenant wasn't filling a spot in one of these high-rise condos, that they just kind of took the opportunity?
1,000 and a billion%. Yes. That's the first thing I told my wife when I saw it. I said, this is what happens. No, I can't get into this.
I might get you started. Look,
we're going to get me started up, and it's going to be crotchety old man combined with Auburn resident and high rises, and we cannot do that. Answer to your question is yes.
I almost got him going. And look, I'm the one that went on a rant last week, and I'm sure some people enjoyed that one.
You almost had me.
So close. Yeah, but even still, however it got there, nice addition. I did step into it for half a second. I'll do some more, like maybe even a video about it at some point when I get back down there after our break with the bye week and everything. What I want to talk about, last piece in Potpourri, is talk about something that I tried for the very first time. And every time I tell someone that this is the first time I've tried it, they are ashamed of me. And I understand why now. Sheila sees, I said it right that time. I was struggling with my enunciation of that pre-show. I keep calling it barbecue burgers. Burger, whatever the full title is. I have
Burger
finally
Barn.
Burger
Burger
Barn.
Barn.
I have stepped in there for the very first time. I'm doing my best to not just get stuck in my ways of my favorites and try to do some things I don't either do that often
Good for
or
you.
haven't done. And I said, you know what? I'm feeling a burger tonight, and someone has been like hounding me on the live streams. Have you tried Sheila C's Burger Barn? Well, I have, folks. And let me tell you, when you pull up to that thing, it's the most hole-in-the-wall place that it possibly could be. Do you think that scares me? No. When you see places like that, usually it's some of the best food around. You have to get over, like, obviously, if you're like someone who's like, I gotta have all the best lighting and decor, and it's got to be updated, then you're this is not the place for you, but it should be. The food was outstanding. I love the atmosphere in there. You can see the open kitchen and the grill back there. They do more than just burgers. They do, as I discovered, they got shakes and they've got other dishes, grilled cheeses and things like that. But the burgers is where it's at. I have tried it, and I've said this to people privately, but I will say it publicly now. I don't know exactly it falls in my list, but it is now in my top 5 places to eat in Auburn. Sheila C's Burger Barn. So I have atoned for not doing it yet. I assume that you're a big fan of it.
A big fan. I went there in college. I had never heard of it before I came to Auburn. A friend took me, and I was just amazed at how much of that burger you can get, how good it is. And Kyle, one of my favorite parts about this place is, were you aware of what they gave you with your number on it when you ordered?
Tag.
A cow tag
that wears on your ears.
A cow tag.
You know what I should have done?
Amazing.
I should have tried to put it on my ear and walk up there to give it back to my food.
A great piece. It's got all the, like you said, it's not the fanciest decor, but it's Auburn memorabilia that's just old. There's no telling how long it's been in there, and they probably haven't rearranged it in decades. But
a stuffed squirrel too.
Correct, stuffed squirrel. An excellent Auburn establishment. I'm proud of you for trying it.
And here's the great thing about this, folks. Yes, we've talked about how this is, a kind of a hole in the wall place, and that's not a knock, as I've said. It's just the way you kind of describe that kind of feel about it. But people are of all walks of life and involved are walking into this place. I had people dressed up coming from what looked like some dinner, but they had dinner there. I had, every college, bro that you could have in there. I had families in there with me. I thought I'd be like the only one eating by myself in there, but no, there's another guy. We just wanted the best burger in town, apparently. At least I'm sure that's what they claim. And I can attest, it's pretty dang good. So I am a fan of that, and I will definitely put it into my rotation from this point forward. And I have atoned for the sin of waiting so long to try Sheila C's Burger Barn, and you should too. Now, that's going to do it for Potpourri. Lots to talk about. Football, and a little bit of Auburn tradition that's being expanded upon. We're going to get into that next. Our big topic number 1 tonight obviously centralizes around Auburn football, the weekend of the Georgia game. The Deep South's oldest rivalry, one of the best rivalries in college football. Does it even compare to the Iron Bowl? No, it's not even a debate, but it is still a much revered by us and Georgia fans and most of college football, understanding the importance of this game that's played every year. And every time we talk about scheduling updates and changes, you always get a little worried. Will we not have this at some point every single year? Hopefully that will never, ever happen, especially because of weekends like this. I think it's not a understatement to say that Georgia has had their way with Auburn over the last few years.
Yep.
And you thought that was going to be the case. Number 1, Georgia, coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium to an unranked, reeling in some ways at the time, Auburn football team, trying to figure out what just happened at Texas A&M. And boy, they gave them everything they could stand and then some. as arrogant and awful as some of the Georgia fans that were around me in the game, boy, were they worried for a long portion of that game until about 3 minutes left. Your Tigers lose 27-20. But I think walked away with a little bit of respect if someone's being reasonable as a Georgia fan and college football fan, and also maybe a little bit more understanding and respect from our fan base in general. So let's talk about it. Whether it's about the game, what you experienced on the weekend. Obviously, the Deep South's oldest rivalry has a lot to talk about. What's on your mind about it?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a space to talk about the game itself and talk about our experience and just the culture and things around that as well. I'll start with the game. Over 2 touchdown underdog. I think it was 14.5 technically. Obviously, I think we're all optimistic. It's Jordan Hare magic that there's something that can happen. A big game, a huge orange out, lots of fans, lots of students packed in there. And it was affected the game, as it always does with Auburn in a big game inside Jordan Hare Stadium. It's going to affect the game. Georgia knows it. Alabama knows it. Anybody that comes in there is going to know that. It does not guarantee you a win, obviously, as we're talking about loss, but it is always going to affect the game positively for the Tigers. I thought that was from the jump. That was exactly the case. The team was Auburn's team was fired up after a devastating loss and a poor performance a week ago. They were excited to get back home and play in front of the fans. Overall, there was a talk about was Hugh Freeze more involved? What's the play calling situation? I already mentioned it pre-show. It's our annual debate as Auburn fans: should the head coach be more involved in play calling? Well, it's here and it's already happened.
And it changes every year. The narrative every year. He doesn't need to be involved. Now he needs to be involved. Now he doesn't be involved.
Yeah. Here we are. And I think, and Coach Freeze has been very transparent, more transparent, I think, than has been in the past about should the head coach be more involved, because he recognizes recruiting has taken a large dip in the past a couple years. When someone just doesn't do it, then you got to pick it back up to where it is. And so he recognizes that his time in order to get this thing back on track as fast as it can has to be placed there. However, you got to look at the here and now at some point. And I think that balancing that is kind of where he's at right now. He confirmed that I'm going to use two of the same words. He told us post game that he confirmed and cleared every play that was on the play sheet before this weekend. Those are his words post game. Now, does that mean he was calling in the plays? Does that mean Phil Montgomery's telling him, I want to do this? Can we do this? He says, yes. I don't know. We know that he was a little more involved throughout the week in the game plan. And I think that helps. It shows. I also think you just had a better game from some of Auburn's players. Peyton Thorne had a better game that we noticed. They worked on footwork all week and keeping your eyes downfield. The receivers had a little bit better game.
In some ways.
In some ways. And the defense had a good game plan. Brock Bowers is probably the best player in the country. And for 3.5 quarters, really 3 quarters, he's locked down and he's got 50 yards, something like that. And the dam can only hold for so long until it breaks. And I mean, he is an absolute talent, and that's what ended up happening. I think, without him, I think Auburn might ends up coming away with winning that game. The reality of it is they have him, and Auburn, that's back to the recruiting, where Auburn hopes to be is having those elite talents. But I don't know how you can, and I don't think many are, as you and I've already talked about this, I don't know how you can't walk away not excited and not optimistic. Does not mean Auburn's going to go win the rest of the games. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think you have to be excited for the upward trajectory, because we haven't had that feeling in a while of being in one of those games and saying we might not be as far away as we think of being able to play with these elite kind of talents. I hate moral victories. I think it's really overrated, but I think there's a lot of tangibly good things to take away from this game. And I don't know how you can't view that the same way, but at the end of the day, Auburn loses. It's sad. I was hoping for a massive rolling at Toomer's Corner. But I mean, what a heck of a game and what of a performance by the Auburn Tigers. I think if you're an E2C lifer, you probably remember thumbs up, thumbs down. I have to give Auburn a thumbs up after this game, Kyle. Just one, not
Wow,
two.
pulling it
Not
out of there.
Just one, not two.
I like it, going back a ways to the days of thumbs up, thumbs down, which I always enjoyed that, frankly. Maybe we'll find a way to make some version of that happen in a different format somewhere down the line. But I agree with everything that you said there. I also don't like to overuse moral victories. Sometimes I feel like we get on these like high horses. We're like, well, it can never be about moral victories.
Correct.
There can be, but it can also be overused. I think this is the word I used yesterday on the post-game live stream. This was a confirmation / affirmation that things weren't as bad as they seem. And that, if you look at it in that frame, I think that frames maybe the description of yesterday better. Not a moral victory, but maybe a confirmation that your worst fears weren't, what they look like. The Texas A&M game to me felt like such an anomaly, which is why I reacted so strongly last week, if you watched my rant, to the overreaction. I overreacted to the overreaction. I didn't overreact. I reacted in a proper way, in my opinion, to the overreaction. And this week is something that I walk away from going, yeah, this is kind of what I thought. We're still got a long, long way to go, but it's not as bad as we seem. Let me talk about Brock Bowers. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do. What I love, and I don't know if you saw this, DC Ron Roberts was showing some big cojones and responded to a person on social media who does not have those, because he was, thinking he was going to make some snappy comment by tagging a coach and he wasn't going to respond, which I love. That's a very cowardice move. And he basically said, why didn't you double team Brock Bowers the entire game? He was like, what game were you watching? We were trying to the entire time. Like we were, I think he said bracketing them the entire time. Some players are just outstanding, and you can scheme the perfect game and have them locked down for a portion of it. And then somehow they make some adjustments to open up some opportunities for him. And he just did. I got to give credit to Josh Pate of Late Kick. I think he said, here goes Brock Bowers leaving his new home as his shot leaving. And man, that stings. But it's true. I mean, he's had 2 great games, I believe, now at Jordan-Hare, and it's hard to argue with the results. But here's what I will say. Outside of Brock Bowers, McConkey, he had a great game too. That Georgia team, I'm sorry, Georgia fans, if you're tuning into this still, first, you should probably be moving on at this point. Y'all are not the number 1 team in the nation. Now, who should be number 1 over you? That's a big discussion. But right now, you almost got your, what handed to you by this Auburn team that's still trying to find a foundation. So I walk away confirmation of Georgia not being as good as they seemed, Auburn being much better than they seemed. And I think that's a fair place to be at with this team, this game right now. How are your interactions with Georgia fans?
Yeah, I didn't have a ton. I did not have a ton. There were several around us that were not bad. One was even that, we had I don't want to get into it too much. We had just a very obnoxious person that I hate to say was cheering for our Tigers behind us.
I had one too.
The worst I've had in a long time, that wears the same colors as me. And he was trying to pick fights, and it was just very annoying. But he ended up talking with another Georgia fan down the row, and he was trying to get him to talk about them barking. And the Georgia guy was like, I don't bark. Like, he was like, I'm 58 and I don't bark. And every one of us were kind of like, well, thank you. Like, that's actually great. So I didn't have a ton. I did have Emily and I were walking back to our car after the game, and there were 2 guys. I think they were, I didn't end up talking to them. I think they were students though at Georgia. They were about that age, if not recently graduated. And they both said, man, I love that stadium. They were just talking. They were like, that stadium, they said if Sanford Stadium didn't exist, they said, that'd be my favorite. Like, it's beautiful. It's so much fun to be at. And they said, but on the same token, they said, I hate playing here. They said, it is like that every time. He said, it doesn't matter how good or bad that they are going to give it to us. And he said, that is an awesome place to play a football game. And so I think back to conversations I've had with people who've been involved with Auburn athletics for a long time. And this even came out a little bit in the press conference this week with Hugh Freeze of saying this is a rivalry that is deep and is deep in brother versus brother, and a different vein with Auburn, Alabama, where there's a mutual respect there. But it is deep, full of we want to win, but we recognize that we have some similarities. And so I was very thankful to hear that conversation behind us about the respect for our stadium and our place. Now, I have not gotten that when I've gone to Athens, and I cannot give as nice of a report. But one day down the line, maybe I'll give it another try.
Let me just tell you about my experience.
We should have started with mine. We should have started with yours and ended high with mine.
No, listen, here's the dynamic. There is a extreme amount of hate, especially amongst like more people of our generation and younger, that hate Georgia almost more than Alabama at times. It seems like they'll never admit it, but the way they behave, I've seen, and I've never really understood that. For me, it's not just about fans. It's about the program, the history there that makes me say, who's my biggest rival? And that's why it's always Alabama. And most 99.9% of people agree with that statement, but I always question some people. However, I've also said that I think I hate LSU more than I hate Georgia. I'm changing that a little bit. I hate Georgia's fans more than I hate LSU's fans, to be quite frankly, at this point. I can't say that I hate the concept of Georgia more than LSU at this point, just because of other things that have happened. But gosh, the individuals that I had in front of me, the seats were open. The entire row in front of me was open for some reason. I'm sure they probably just sat. Well, it struck me that they're probably sitting like a row, or anyway, it doesn't matter. They came up and they were acting like they wanted to come sit in those seats. And, they kind of looked at me and they said, is anybody sitting here? And I said, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know, but here's what I'm gonna tell you. If y'all don't behave, we're gonna have a problem. I just looked them square in the eyes and I said, so y'all better behave. They did not behave. We never got into it directly. Of course, I kind of delivered some things back at them that they were just being absolutely awful about, cheering and doing chants, leading chants in the middle of players being injured. Whether they were really injured or not is besides the point. And just being awful human beings and awful representatives of UGA. So to not end on a sour note, but that was my experience with Georgia fans. And they definitely sullied what was once an opinion where on my hate level, it was Alabama, LSU, then Georgia. Now it's kind of getting up closer. So, just
I think the last couple of years have probably amplified it too. I mean, with anything, it doesn't matter, what sport or what level of play. When a team has success, there's going to be people that probably get a little more boisterous than they normally would. But that's unfortunate. And I will never get over the barking. I cannot get over it. It is one of the strange. I know that some people probably like, we all throw toilet paper in the trees.
Okay, well, but we're doing that.
I'm fine with that. I'm doing that for
me.
me. I'm not barking at anybody, and I don't look as much of a fool as I do if I was literally salivating and barking at somebody.
We are literally doing that with each other, for each other, celebrating together. You are barking at an individual. I will never my life understand a grown human being literally barking at another person.
So strange.
Never understand it. So leave it at that. Georgia, the game, we obviously talked a little bit about then where we're at with it, and then the atmosphere and some of the experiences. Obviously, we'll be talking about Georgia in other capacities later in the year, so we can get into more of that at that point. But now in segment number 2, big topic number 2 tonight, let's talk a little bit about one of our, some would say, our greatest tradition. That's a big debate. It
is.
The War Eagle flight, we're going to talk about a specific thing within it, but where do you stand on that? Is that the greatest tradition? Tiger Walk, Rolling Tumors? This is kind of getting into our Mount Rushmore series a little bit prematurely, but just quick thoughts on that statement.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part to this where I want to talk about the in relation to what we're going to talk about with the Eagle flight, that it's something that's so special to Auburn that I think it's up there for me. But I don't know. The Tumors Corner, and rolling tumors happens way outside of football. Now we've had the eagle flight at baseball now. I recognize that. But
And
for a
some
long time, it has been just football. And so I think tumors probably edges it out for me.
I understand that, and that's definitely a debate we can have when the time arises, when we're needing a big topic to talk about.
Tough.
It is. But the news as of late, today, even on this Sunday evening of August 1st, that we're October 1st.
October.
Boy, it's been a rough couple weeks and month for me, folks. But the War Eagle flight obviously is revered, respected, and awed even by opposing fans when they get to view it in person in Jordan-Hare. But now more fans are getting to experience and utilize our Eagles in different capacities. We talked about the War Eagle flight at baseball, and we've done an episode about that in the past. But now we're having the opportunity to talk about our Eagles going professional. They made it into the draft, and with the first pick in the supplementary draft in the middle of the season are the War Eagles from Auburn to the Philadelphia Eagles. Your thoughts on the Eagles flying for the Eagles?
Yeah. It's cool, right? It's very cool that the Eagles, who I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't think have ever done something like this before. And they know the Southeastern Raptor Center at Auburn University is going to be the best of the pros to do it. And so apparently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and now today, Sunday, October 1st, that the Independence has flown at in Philadelphia at their home stadium before the game. I haven't watched the whole clip, but it looks like she's flying off a concourse and she's going down to the field. I don't think they're saying "Go Eagles," but
one more time. Can I get that one more time?
No, you've got it on recording. I don't know what they're thinking, but Kyle, I'm always a big fan of Auburn being exposed to other people, Auburn nationally, internationally, galactically one day.
Galactically. Wow, that just took a turn.
But Kyle, what are the words that we say about the Eagle flight? Rick Smith says it every time. Please turn your attention to the Northeast end zone for a tradition that is uniquely Auburn.
Yep.
It kind of chomps at my gears a little bit that we're sharing this tradition other places, especially in the same capacity. Like, baseball is one thing. We're right across the street from Jordan-Hare Stadium at Plainsman Park.
They could fly from the scoreboard down to
I would be all for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit.
Interesting.
But I know that's probably not where you thought I would be going with this.
Wow.
But it kind of irks me just a tad. The first time I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome. Now I'm like, all right, are we going to be flying our birds up there every, 2 weeks for y'all to mooch off all the talent we've been harvesting down here? Because I don't think so. You better be drafting at least 2 Auburn players a year if you want independents coming up there and flying. That's my deal. So I don't know, Kyle. It irks me just a little bit, but
interesting. It's not where I thought you'd be. No. That's fine. No, I understand your position completely. It's not where I thought you'd be on it. I'm glad you see the relevancy to spreading the message of Auburn.
Yes.
Across the nation and galactically, apparently you say at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, was I shocked when I saw this for the first time? Sure. I was like, well, but it makes sense. The Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct.
And I think their little chant is "Fly Eagles Fly" or something like that. I'm not an Eagles fan, so I can't, I don't know how they incorporate all that in there. I think a one-off is great,
Yes,
doing something one time or maybe, once every few years or something like that is, I think I am a little shocked that they've gone twice now in the same month. And it's interesting that it was that big of a hit. So if there's anybody that ever wants to question the majestic nature, the awesomeness that is this tradition, it's gone professional, folks. I think can't, that's the trump card. You can't ever argue that this is a dumb tradition, that this is not something that's cool. Professional teams want the Eagles to fly for them. Does it make sense only because they're the Eagles? Sure. But it's obviously a big, big success. So full transparency here. I used to be a volunteer for the Raptor Center when I was in college. Did not volunteer for the education side, which is where the War Eagles were, and other education birds. I worked on the rehab side, but still awesome. Got familiarity with some of that. I saw the Eagles a few times. I'm interested. I'd be interested to know the logistics of getting that bird ready for that stadium. I don't think it's as difficult as maybe some of us think it would be, because these birds are so well taken care of, trained, reinforced. I mean, I'm using basic terms. There are more important terms to be discussing here when you're talking about training a bird or an animal in general. But they do a great job over there, and we're obviously very fond of the birds themselves. So I'd be interested to know the logistics of all of that. First of all, let me bring this up too. How much are we getting paid for this?
That's, valid question. And, if we're about to be handing out ARIA and Independence's scholarships to people, then that's one thing. But, it's interesting. And I was reminded too, I remember I did not go, I wish I had, to the 2010 national championship game, but I remember seeing a bald eagle flew. I don't think we had anything to do with it. I doubt they would have let us take over that much. But it's, other people have tried it. And like I said, I respect and am glad that the Philadelphia Eagles and whoever the marketing director, I guess, up there, whoever manages all those things, looked at Auburn and said, they know what they're doing. They got the pros to do it if we want to pull this off up here. And maybe this is a training thing. Maybe they're working out, see how they can bring somebody up to do it on their own. As long as they just keep giving us credit, as long as we don't forget who was the OG in all this. That's all I'm saying is I want credit.
You're protecting the brand, protecting the concept, protective of a tradition that is uniquely Auburn.
That's correct.
And to quote Rick Smith. So I get it. I get your defense of what's going on.
I'm a little defensive. Here. Yeah.
And that's fine. I think that's an understandable place to be. I think, we'll see where this goes. If this starts becoming a regular thing, I'm gonna be really intrigued by that. It's like, oh, we're getting some money then, obviously. The other thing about this too, does it make it any better that we're using the bald eagles? Because, technically the bald eagles are not war eagles. The only one that was made honorary is retired spirit. Does that help?
It does help. When I saw it, I thought the fact that this is Independence, I love them all equally, just like my children.
I do too.
The fact that this is Independence helps. If it were ARIA or I'm blanking on the
Tiger back in the day,
Yes, there's a second
yes,
Golden Eagle, and I can't remember their name at the moment.
I am failing you right now too, so I'm sorry.
If it were that individually eagle, or if it were that eagle, I'm humanizing them a little too much. If it were that eagle or ARIA, I would be a little more up in arms. The fact that it's Independence, I'm a little more okay with that.
Gotcha.
I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But where are you on? Do you have a preference when you go to an Auburn game? Which one? Nova. Thank you. Where are you on preference of if you'd like to see the bald eagle fly or a golden eagle?
Well, my easy answer would be whichever one flies the best, but they all fly good.
They all fly good.
It's got to be the golden eagle. I mean, that's what it started with. It's kind of cool that we get to kind of tie our nation symbol into it a little bit. And so, Spirit, I've told stories before about him being a very special bird. We'll put it at that. And you could probably witness a few of those times. So, and I could tell you a few things at being a former bird employed, worked with birds for a large portion of my career. So we'll leave it at that. It's always going to be Golden Eagles. So
always. Right
now, let's just say, hey, look, Eagles fans, Philadelphia Eagles, y'all can we love them. If y'all want to borrow the bald Eagles right now, sure. But if you come for the Golden Eagles, Mr. Austin Scott might be getting on your case a little bit.
There's another thing too. Like, what if it's going to get cold up there and it's going to start snowing? She don't have a lot of experience with that.
That's
So
fair
does
point.
it, if this has a time limit, then that's okay too. But don't be putting our birds up there in the snow. They're southern birds.
Maybe we'll get the behind the scenes story of that somewhere down the line. But for now, we'll watch eagerly to see if it continues. And we'll try to not ruffle Austin's feathers even any further than they've already been ruffled. That's going to do it for this episode of the Auburn Experience podcast, episode 52. Thank you all so much for listening. Those of you that watch live, thank you for being here. And you're invited to do so as well on YouTube if you'd like to watch it recorded live. On the way out, if you want to connect with me, you can do so on X at Kyle Loomis 24. If you want to connect with Austin, where can they find you?
You can find me Austin G. Scott on all the things, including whatever that social platform is, whatever letter we're calling it this week.
This is brought to you by the letter X. W. It'll be something. Anyway, thank you all so much. Connect with us if you'd like to. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right. That's the show, folks. Thank you so much, Austin, for being here. Thank you all for attending. Any final thoughts from you?
Just want to check and see what if anyone said anything. I think I'm interested to see the feedback on the Eagle story.
Yeah. It got a lot of feedback in the chat, so I'll hit some of it with them.
I think Nova is the other. I think WT is right.
Nova is the other one. Yes. So it'd be Tiger, Nova, Aria is the lineage now, and I'm ashamed that it took me that long to get to it.
But is Nova retired?
Nova is retired now. Yeah, Nova retired back.
So there's only 1 and 1 that are active.
But I think there's a second bald now. I could be wrong. I think that happened one other time. But Independence and Aria are our Eagles now.
There's I think there's another like patriotic name that's not coming to me that I think is another bald eagle.
Yes, that's what I'm kind of getting at. And if you can't come up with this week, I'm going to put it as your homework for next week. Corey says, look at my Eagle question. I'm going to get to that, Corey. I was going to hit it on the back end, but I didn't know how long Austin could stay. But I can hit it now if you want me to, Austin.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
He asked,
I'm Googling.
How many years do we use one particular Eagle? Again, I have not been part of the Raptor Center for years now, and maybe I knew that information at one point. Here, I'm going to give you my somewhat background being there answer with this. I don't think that there is a set years that you would do that. It depends upon the bird, their health, other reasons. That's the reason that the Tigers, former Tigers, retired. And we've had several of those. Nova retired. That Spirit retired. Is that they got to an age where they felt like health-wise it was not in their best interest to continue to be utilized in that way, because it's a very stressful event, which they become very accustomed to. But it's still, I mean, think about it. You go to a football game, it's stressful, right? You enjoy it, you get value out of it, but it's still stressful. And at some point you have to ask the question, can my little Auburn heart take this anymore? So same thing for, an Eagles body and all that stuff too. So there's not a direct answer to that, Corey. It is a good question. And if we ever get an opportunity to speak to someone there, we might ask that in some vein, but it's not going to be a particular answer that covers a specific eagle or a specific species, golden or bald. It's going to be what the individual does. That's my answer.
The resident Raptors, they have a page of the names of all their resident Raptors, the owls, the hawks, the vultures, all the things. They have 4 currently Eagles. 2 are bald and 2 are golden. Independence and Spirit are bald. Nova and Aria are golden.
Okay.
I could have sworn there was another one.
WT says Liberty. That kind of rings a bell.
Yeah.
I don't
know why the other one is not listed on here. Maybe that's a sad subject. But anyway. Okay. Anyway.
Good thoughts, though. Good thoughts.
Thoughts.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Austin, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. War Eagle, everybody.
War Eagle.
Happy bye week.
Happy bye week to you too, sir, as I brought you off screen. All right, look, I actually have to run, but I can take literally for just a few minutes here, some comments and questions. I'll run through maybe the back end of what you guys were talking about during the show, but there's something specific you'd like me to address or talk about, get it in now. Let me go ahead and give you the rundown of information. Most of you know the drill, but let's just remind you. Next scheduled live stream will be this Wednesday for our Auburn Family Night. We will not have a Thursday night preview because there's nothing can't preview the bye week. I guess you can, but we're not going to. And then we will have another Sunday live stream for the Auburn Experience podcast. So that's your scheduled stuff. We are probably going to have a lot more content as my life is getting back to a little bit of normalcy, hopefully this week. And I have a lot of like videos I want to put out about the experiences that we were a part of and stuff that you probably missed out on, pep rallies and special moments at the game and things like that. So stand by for lots more content, hopefully this week. And of course, all our slew of podcasts. Make sure, of course, though, that you're checking out the links in the description for ways that you can help keep the lights on here at E2C Network and keep us going. It's always appreciated that those of you that can do that. Let's see. Dennis asks, what's going on with the backdrop? Like the Auburn room, you're not at home. No, Dennis, I don't know how much I've said on this particular stream or what you've been, other streams that you've been on. I've had a big life change that's happened, a very good life change that's happened that I'm not at liberty to talk about on a format like this. Right now, you can speculate as to what that is. I just can't talk about it. But it has forced me over the past month to be in several places, to do a lot of finagling at times, and we will be getting back to some normalcy tomorrow, and you'll see me more frequently back in my home studio. So that's not gone anywhere. We're just in a very fun and busy season of life that hopefully will be normalizing soon. So good question. WT says, I will say that I hate moral victories, but UGA game makes me feel. Freeze has us in the right track. Hate to lose. Freeze is digging us out of a hole. Fair point, and I agree as well. Brian, I love the Golden Eagles, but Spirit took some of the most talked about flights. Always an adventure. Always an adventure is a nice way to put it. We'll leave it at that. Golden Eagle was always in the merchandise, but don't mind the bald eagles. That's a good way to look at it too. Yeah, all is well. Just been a busy season. You should talk to Austin. He will give you some insights because I know you. Yeah, I know the relationship there. Kyle got sponsored by Buc-ee's, is now moving into a mansion. I wish and would so welcome a Buc-ee's sponsorship, but I have a feeling that they don't need sponsorship. Just look at what they're doing. So, all right, folks, with that being said, I appreciate you guys being here. We still went almost the full time that I normally do, but thank y'all so much for being here. For those of you that have been dealing with the craziness of us, being in different places over the last few months, thank you so much. I'm sure there's still going to be some fun times ahead, but we are very fortunate to have you all as an audience, whether you're here live, whether you're here on the replay, whether you're watching here on YouTube or Facebook, whatever. We appreciate you guys so much. And this is why you are the best little family within the Auburn family, and continue to believe that. And we'll continue to shout that from the heavens for as long as we're doing this. So thank you guys. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.